Today I want to talk to you about feeling behind in life, because it's all about feeling like life is passing you by, like you're waiting for somebody to hand you the baton so things will get moving. And I'm somebody who's experienced both. So I've been in a state where things look great on paper and I had financial success, I had a career, I was doing consulting and banking. There were so many things that looked great on paper, but I knew I wasn't tapping into my potential and I knew that I wasn't really where I was supposed to be. And now my life looks completely different, and it has nothing to do with some external accolades. It's not like if you see a checklist and you have crossed those things off that you feel like you're not behind. Because feeling behind is really about an internal state. There is nobody really looking at you. There's nobody really judging you. Even if you think they are, most people are concerned with themselves. So it's about how we experience life. And when you are in a place where you feel like something is missing, life is passing me by, I'm behind, then it's all about how we approach reality. And I have experienced both states. So I'm not here to tell you, oh, everything has always been great and I loved my life and I will now tell you how to get there. And I'm also not somebody who still feels like they're behind or something is missing and I'm trying to find an answer for you. I have found an answer for me, and I've helped hundreds of INFJs throughout the years to really get to this place through working with them one-on-one. There are countless INFJs in BOOTCAMP that have gone through this process as well. So it is something that I have really tried out, not just in my life, but I've been able to help so many others with that. And so I want to share with you the main strategies that have helped me to really know that I'm living my version of an epic life. I am living a life where I'm in control and I'm going towards everything that I want at that moment. Before we get started, I want to remind you I have a poster for you, the INFJ Priority Code Checklist. You can get this through the link in the description. And if you want to take to the next level, now in August, I offer a bundle price for the energy and financial abundance course together. Everything you need to know, you can find through the links in the description. I've seen people get to this place of something is missing in my life. I feel behind. I feel like people are passing me by and things are working out for others at any age. I've met 60-year-olds who feel this way. I've met 20-year-olds who feel this way. And I've also met people who are in a place that is similar to mine, which is I know what I'm doing with my life. And for me, everything changed the moment I understood that no matter what I achieve in my life, it's not going to change how I feel about it. My life isn't more worth or less worth based on what I achieve. That's just a fact. If I'm a fisherman somewhere living a modest life, my life is just as valuable as somebody who, sits on the couch every day, doesn't do anything, and is also just as valuable as the life of somebody who makes millions and works 80 hours a week. There is no difference. A life is just life. And if you really think about it, there's nobody who's going to tell you that your life is right or wrong. Thankfully, we live now in a society where there isn't just this one path. It's not that society tells us these are the things you have to check off your list, only then you're going to be successful. Because nowadays we see more and more people who live individualistic lives. And we've also seen people who seemingly have everything, the fame, the money, the success, who are incredibly unhappy. So what is the difference? How do you get from this space where everything seems like out of whack, like you're a fish outside of water, to really being in your element? Because that's what it's all about. And that is how much of your reality can be anchored into the real world. Every single person has their perception of reality. Every single one of you who's watching this has a different experience of life. Even if we have so many things in common, I'm going to experience life differently than you. And this is, on the one hand, partly because of what I've experienced, but of course, a lot has to do with genetics and personality types and so on and so forth. One way or another, even if two people are very much alike, their perception of reality is going to be different. And once I understood this, not as a concept, but to really get to a place where I knew there is no way out of this. The way I experience life doesn't exist outside of me. That does not mean that it cannot overlap with other people's perception of reality. But if I want to connect with people, if I want to feel like life is happening through me, then I have to actually expand my reality to such an extent that others can be part of it. because then you actually feel like life is happening through you. Then you don't feel behind. Then you don't feel like life is happening on the other side and you're just an observer. Other people are living it and they seem not to question what's really going on. And for us, we sit back and we're just waiting. This concept of, oh, I'm waiting for the perfect romance to happen in my life, but I'm not going on any professional dating websites. I just hope that through some coincidence, things are going to happen. People do this because the reality doesn't match the fantasy. So the reality is that you're most likely not going to meet the love of your life, this big romance, by not doing anything about it. And even if you did, and you start like the dating process in a more professional way, there's not going to be anything romantic about it. It's going to be, do we fit on paper? Can our lives be combined? And so on. So what does this mean? Does this mean we have to give up all of those fantasies? Partially, I think we do. Because if we hold on to some fantasy, we can never really wake up and start embracing the life that we have. Because if it comes down to not just romance, but all the things that we imagine, if we say that's the only way I'm going to be happy, if I achieve those dream states that I have built up in my mind, and that's the only way how things will make sense, then of course you're going to hold back. Why go for the better job if I'm still going to feel alone? Why change cities if I'm just going to meet new people who don't understand me? Why go on a dating website when I'm going to meet the exact same people who have no depth? Why do all of that? And I think that's a reason why so many people feel behind and why they're not taking any steps. Because we already know that those steps are not going to change anything. That's how it was for me. And I've seen people in unhappy marriages. I've seen people in unhappy jobs, staying in those jobs because the alternative isn't the solution. But it's not the solution yet. If you start thinking of your life from a different perspective, which is, no matter what I do, my life is just as valuable. I don't need to achieve my dream life in order for my life to be a miracle. Everything that we have in our life, if we're healthy, if we have a roof over our head, if the closest people in our life are okay, that is already such a luxury. And until we get to appreciate what we already have, we're never going to get to a place where we feel like life is happening through us and everything is amazing. And I've had so many people tell me, what, you want me just to settle? You want me to be happy with the current situation? What I'm saying is that you can't create a better life in a way of that you know it's better, that you know things are exciting, if you can't get excited about what is currently going on. And the best strategy that I have found to get to this place is to first accept where you are. So this concept of radical acceptance, but from a perspective of, what if things never got any better? What if my financial situation never gets better? What if my romantic life stays the way it is? What if I stay at this job for the rest of my life or until I go into retirement or whatever it is? How will I cope with this? And I remember when I first asked myself this question around the time when I started this channel, it was not an answer that I was looking for because I didn't like my life. I didn't like my friendships. I didn't like where I lived and how dark everything seemed. I had a big gray cloud over my head at this time. I didn't like my job that much that I wanted to do it for the rest of my life. But still, I had to get to a place where I said, what if it never got any better? And to then start appreciating not only what is happening outside of me, but also what I have done to get to where I am. Because there are always people who wish they would have what you have. There are always people who would appreciate to have your inner clarity. There are always people who would look up to whatever you have achieved that you find just the bare minimum. And when you get to a place where you say, what if things never got any better? And I start appreciating that, that's when I can move up. So I always say we have this one vision in our mind of how life could be. And you don't have to be able to name it completely, but there's still something that you could grasp or even not, but it's an image, it's a feeling, it's something that we strive for. What if we took that situation out of the equation? What I mean by this is, what if our imagination becomes our North Star? And we're not going to compare our life and what we have achieved with that North Star. We're going to compare it with what have I been able to improve since last year. And there's, of course, this epidemic almost of people saying, I constantly have to improve. And you see this even with all this body improvements, morning routines, and so on. Of course, you can overdo this, and this can become a problem. People who schedule their day perfectly and all of that. That's not what it's about. What I'm talking about is, do you feel like you're more like yourself? Do you feel like your life is more of a representation who you want to be? Is it that the people that you interact with, the situations that you're in, are helping you to anchor in the person that you want to become? And that is something that you can always improve upon. Because it doesn't matter how small a difference is, there's still a difference of the new job in comparison to the old job. Let's say you want to be an author, but currently you're an accountant. Then if you say, I'm only going to be happy if I'm an author, every single day as an accountant is going to feel miserable. And you're going to feel like something is missing because you're just missing that motivation that's going to make you start writing. And even if you write, then there's the chance of it not working out and so on. But what if you made this like two different things? You have your goal to be an author and you can start doing this on the weekends and just as something additional that is part of you bringing who you are more to the outside. But at the same time, you can apply for a better job and say, the only way I'm going to switch jobs is if my new situation is better than my old one. And it's going to help me to be more of the person that I want to be. So how is that going to help me with feeling behind in life? Well, if you think about it in terms of you want your reality to be expanded. And right now, the way I see life is just reflected within me. This is, of course, just a concept. Think of it, your reality is within you, and everybody else outside of you is also living in their own reality. The less you anchor in, and I will explain to you what anchoring in actually means, the less you anchor in who you are, the less people are going to know who you are, the less they can interact with the real person that you are, and the less you can build upon your own reality. So when I started this channel, for example, this was an externally observable fact, meaning people who would have projected onto me that I'm a cool, popular girl, they couldn't do this anymore. And this is positive and negative. There were people who, once they saw that I was doing this and that I was talking about the things I was talking about, they lost interest in me because they understood who I really was and it wasn't in accordance to who they wanted me to be. I didn't fit into their life. And then there were also other people who understood me better and liked me more because I showed that part of me. Well, once you start anchoring in your identity more and more, you allow two things to happen. First off, you allow your reality to grow. As long as all of the ideas that I'm talking about here, as long as they stayed in my mind, although they make perfect sense and I felt like this is how reality is, there was no way somebody would know that. And there's no way this could have influenced anybody. When you start anchoring in who you are, and this is not just about talking about it, it's also about making choices where you live. So if you move, for example, from a big city to a small city, this is something that is a representation of how you feel about your life right now. This is a choice you make. This is something that you're anchoring in. If you make the choice of switching your job, it's something that you're consciously doing. If you say, I'm going to sign up for a professional dating website with personality tests, and I'm going to talk about the things that are most important to me, you're anchoring in who you are. You make who you are more visible. And the more you do this, you are actually allowing yourself to become part of the real world. You're not just this entity that is living outside of it. I remember very vividly when I came into new groups that I kind of thought of the situation of, okay, there are 6 people and they have this group energy and I'm just going to try to adapt to that energy. But every time you do this, you're going to feel like life is happening outside of you. But what is the alternative? The alternative is to say, no matter what I do, my life isn't going to get ruined by whatever I do, and it's not going to get ruined by everything that I don't do, because my life isn't going to get more meaningful. When you're dead, at some point people will forget about you. And it doesn't matter if you're the queen or somebody who knew 3 people in their life. And there's nobody who will tell you now your life is meaningful or it's not. So what we want to achieve is a life where you know you're making the best out of it. So you're happy the older you get because you're grateful that you get to be that age and you're grateful to be alive. Then it's more so, how can I add more fulfillment to my life? How can I really make my life meaningful from my perspective? And that is all about expanding your universe in a way that is beneficial to you and to others. I have found that the biggest fulfillment we get is through service, one way or another. So as long as we're living life in order to prove to ourselves that we're worthy, we're always going to feel like something is missing. And this is, of course, not coming from a place of, oh, I've achieved this place perfectly. I do believe that there's so many ways how we try to overcompensate, or we are giving too much and we feel like we're not enough, and that's why we're doing things that are very altruistic, or like have this image of doing something that is so good when in the end we're just helping our own ego. Of course those things are happening. But generally speaking, if you live a life where you're thankful, if you live a life where you are taking charge of it, not in a way that overwhelms you, but where you know that the more you anchor in who you are, meaning you allow the world around you to be influenced by you, the more you're going to feel like life is happening through you. And then there is no behind, because then there is nothing external to compare it to. So if I go back to the example of the 6 people, if I enter that group, that's a whole new energy. Before it was like, I'm trying to adapt and I'm saying, I sort of don't like it, but I live here and I actually have to live in a world that is not exciting to me. But if I say, well, I'm in it and I'm responsible for creating the energy within those 7 people just as much as everybody else, everything changes, because then it's on me. And I had this before when I didn't want to throw birthday parties because I didn't want to be responsible for the energy that I was creating. But if you get to a place where you know you're always responsible, you might not want the responsibility, but in your life, you're always responsible for the energy. So if you feel like you're behind, you are just giving off the responsibility to the default state. And every single time you do this, the people around you, the circumstances around you, society will put you in a position that is not favorable for you. It's not. Only way we feel like life is happening through us, life is happening in a way where we are taking charge and in a way that is fulfilling, right? Our biggest goal isn't to create some immense financial success or to do everything that society wants of us, but to live in alignment with who we know we can be, and to connect with people and to feel real belonging and to be of service just by being ourselves. And the more you really make choices in your life that are a representation of who you are, not in comparison to your dream. Because if you say deep down, I know I'm an author, but right now I just can't make that big step, then what most people do is they don't do anything. And when you don't do anything, people cannot see who you are at all. But if you say, I'm going to switch jobs and I'm not going to give up on my old job, of course, I'm going to go for the new job. And once I get it, then I'm going to give up my old job. So we're doing this in a way where we make sure that we create enough safety for ourselves. You're going to show more of who you are, because it shows that you care about your future. It shows what is important to you because you chose that job and not another. And it's not that somebody looks at you and is following you around and then creates this image of you, but you just become more and more aware of who you are. And every single choice that you make that is more in alignment with who you know to be, the more you're going to have an identity shift. My identity now as somebody who has their own business, who has a family life, is completely different than my identity that I had when I was working in the corporate world. I'm still the same person, but the people that I talk to are different. The situations that I'm in are different. And all of this has an impact on us. But I would have never been able to make those choices and those steps if I felt like that those choices will make or break me as a human being, will decide if I'm worthy or not, because then I wouldn't have done anything. At the end of the day, you're always going to feel like you're behind if you compare your current reality to the dream that you've built up in your mind. The dream is supposed to be internal. The dream is based on a reality that you only live yourself. In order for you to create some of that reality, you have to wake up from it. You have to first be grateful, thankful, and proud for everything you've achieved, for the life you've created for yourself so far. And then to say, if nothing changed, I would be so incredibly lucky to have lived the life I have lived so far. No matter what you've gone through, no matter how much pain you've experienced, you are alive. And once we really get to a place where you understand, okay, no matter what I do isn't going to change my worthiness, then it's about how can I expand upon what I have. And I will use my dream state as my North Star. It will help me to know in what direction to expand my life. But the starting point is right here. It's my current apartment. It's my current job. It's my current romantic situation. That is where I start. And from that moment on, and from that place on, I can expand. And I promise you, when you start approaching life this way, everything changes. That's how you really change from the inside out. That's how you expand yourself into the real world. That's how you anchor in who you are in a way more tangible way than you ever have before. Because we always think others sort of get our reality, but they don't. And that's why we always feel like something is missing. The more you make it clear, this is who I am, because of the choices that you make, because of the things that you reveal about yourself, the easier it is to then say, okay, I'm living a life that is more and more in accordance to my inner state. And that's how you get your inner state to actually be expanded into your physical real world. And that's how you stop feeling behind. Because think about it. Feeling behind is all about thinking life is happening outside of me. Something is missing that's going to create that link. And what we always think is, oh, something external needs to come in and then everything else will happen. But it's the exact opposite. It's understanding that what we imagine to be out there is just the way we look at it. We decide what we focus on. We decide in what direction we look. We decide who we compare ourselves with. And when you then say, okay, let me first get okay with where I'm at, start being appreciative of it, and then say, I have to set goals. I have to move forward. Not because I will be more successful then, but because I will be more of who I am. Because I'm not going to follow a path that society sets up for me. I'm going to follow a path that allows me to live more and more in alignment with who I am. And being somebody who's gone down that path, I can tell you there's nothing more fulfilling. And I wish that upon all of you. Remember, if you want some more help with this, first get the INFJ Priority Code Checklist. It's a free poster that you can download now. You can also get the bundle on the Energy and Financial Abundance course only in August. And you're, of course, always welcome to join us in our INFJ Epic Life Bootcamp. Our next live call will be all about prosperity. And that's also what we're going to focus on next month. So if my videos are speaking to you and you feel like this is moving something within you, then trust me, my materials are going to amplify this to the next level. Everything you need to know you can find through the links in the description. And if you want to watch another video now that is in line with today's topic, then check out the video you see on the screen right now. I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.